بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن. عليكم السلام. You're good.
Wow, it's like freezing in here.
Yeah, that's why we like it.
Oh, but why is it so cold? No?
I don't know. It's
Sheikh,
not the heat. It's not.
this Jummah you have, right? You're going to be doing it?
I'm actually gonna ask the Sheikh to pass on it.
Oh, really?
I'm traveling this week.
Oh, okay, okay.
Thanksgiving.
Okay, oh, because you're traveling. Okay,
Okay.
all right. I'll inshallah get back.
I
But
guess it's on you, man.
I'll talk to him a little bit later. Inshallah.
Okay, okay, inshallah.
It's you, man.
No, I was actually asking Miss Switch too. He's like, oh, I'm about to do. I said, okay, because I'm supposed to do the last of the month.
Okay, but I'll talk to him
He
because it's
switched me
possible.
to the
I'm
first week of the next week, but so I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe we can.
We'll talk inshallah.
Okay.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. So last time we were talking about shirk, and we wanted to talk about a little bit more about tawheed and shirk. So the first thing that's important to understand is what is tawheed. Tawheed is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only Allah. Right? Sounds simple enough. Because we've learned that La ilaha illallah. La ilaha is the negation of the validity of worship of anyone, and then illallah is the exception that we only worship Allah. And that is the ultimate level of affirmation. That affirmation is the ultimate level of affirmation when you're negating everything and then affirming one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore we understand that we worship Allah and only Allah. So there's a couple components here. Number one is worship. Number two is that it's only deserving to Allah. Okay? So now the first question is, what is worship? Okay? So what is worship? Worship is many things. Worship is many things. Okay? For example, salah is worship. But there are a lot of things that are worship that are not physical actions. Love is worship. So anything that there is worship in, there can be shirk in. Anything that there is worship in, there can be shirk in. Okay, so love is worship. Fear is worship. Hope is worship. Right? Depending on Allah is worship. No. So hamd is worship. Dhikr is also worship, yes. So there are many types of worship, okay? And then let's just talk about one of those. And I think probably a common one that we would all want to know about is love, for example. Right? Because we all have people that we love in our lives. Now the question is that love that you have halal or haram? Because, again, love is worship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So what is worshipping love and what is not worshipping love? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهِ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. Let's say if you truly love Allah, then follow me and Allah will love you. Meaning follow the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So therefore, how do we know that we love Allah? You love Allah if you follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the more you are like the Prophet ﷺ, the more you love Allah. The less you are like the Prophet ﷺ, the less you love Allah. You can claim you love Allah day and night, but the proof of that is your following of the Prophet ﷺ. The proof of that love is how much you are like him. Okay? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to be like him. So now we understand what love is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So there is love, and then there is something that happens because of that love. Right? There's a poet, he said, تعصي الإله وأنت تزعم حبه هذا أمر something شنيع, right? لو كان حبك خالصا لأطعته إن المحب لمن أحب مطيع. So he said, you're sinning, disobeying Allah, and you claim to love him. This هذا لأمر في القياس شنيع, and this is something that it makes no sense, right? If your love was true, and sincere, then you would obey him. You would obey Allah, right? إن كان حبك خالصا لأطعته إن المحب لمن أحب مطيع. Surely the lover who is loving of his lover, he will obey him. Meaning if you truly love Allah, you will obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so love of Allah requires action. Okay. Now the next thing is, how do we know if we love someone else that it is shirk? How do we know loving someone else is shirk? We know that if because of the love that I have of this person, okay, because obviously it's this person or this place or this, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Because the love that I have of that thing, I will do something haram, or I will do something that is disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I love that thing or that person. Does that make sense? So that love now is making me disobey Allah, so therefore I definitely love that more than I love Allah. And that is shirk. Mind you as well though, right? Because not only should we not love someone more than we love Allah, we should also not love someone as much as we love Allah. We have to love Allah more than anything or anyone else. This goes for our spouses, our children, our parents, doesn't matter what it is.
Prophet.
Even the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, right? We have to love Allah first. But I mean, in loving Allah is loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's never going to be a contradiction there.
But there's over like in Pakistan
It's
There is
everywhere.
a line.
there's a line that they cross.
Yes.
It's they the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi he becomes like sometimes
Above.
the same
Above.
level or above even Allah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's everywhere there is.
Well,
Yeah.
Even in my country.
well, again, the thing is, how do we know we love Allah? It's the obedience. And how can the Prophet ﷺ be above
Right.
if you're obedient?
Yeah.
That's not possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if we truly love Allah, and it's Allah that we're loving, then obviously we have to love the Prophet ﷺ. And then there's no contradiction. Does that make sense? Because so the way that you know that you're committing shirk with your love is because there is a contradiction. That person or that thing that you love now is making you do something haram, and you're doing it because of your love. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In essence, that can be shirk. Right? Because you're loving that person or that thing more than you're loving Allah. Okay? So the reason that I wanted to mention this, and this is a perfect example, because a lot of people in our day and age fall into this. We fall into this issue of overly loving. Whether that be with our spouse, it could be, it's a halal love. But it's too much. Do you get what I'm saying? Because now you're putting that person above Allah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be above everyone, above your parents, your children, everybody and everything, right? And subhanallah, if you look at the life of the companions, radwanullahi alayhim, and the stuff that they did, it was deep, subhanallah, that they were constantly showing that their love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always above everything else. Right? And one of the best examples of that I love is Rumaysa. Sulaym. Yes.
Middle daughter's name.
Oh, mashallah. She's one of the best examples of this, from the companions. How much she put Allah first. Right? When she became Muslim, she told her husband, "You're on a time clock." She's like, "You're gonna either become Muslim, or I'm gone. I'm leaving you." Can you imagine, like, that situation? A wife telling her husband something like that? And he didn't become Muslim. She was gone. And then when she came to Medina, she took her son and gave him to the Prophet ﷺ and said that he's going to serve you. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. Right? And he became one of the biggest scholars of the companions. And she was basically always encouraging him, serve the Prophet ﷺ. Be good to the Prophet ﷺ. Teaching him from a very, very young age, like, your success is at the feet of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's how he grew up. Right? She was raising her husband when she got married again. She was pretty much raising her husband. But in a way, in a very feminine, beautiful way, subhanallah, and made him amazing. Right? She raised her other children and made them amazing. And there's a hadith that talk about how prosperous her family was afterwards. All of her children had many kids, and almost all of them memorized the Quran. Almost all of them. Because of that dedication towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above anything or anyone else. Right? So this dedication, when you have that love of Allah before anyone else, yes, you love your family. Yes, you love your spouse. Yes, you love your kids. But Allah comes before all of them. Right? So when you do that, I mean, who's in control of all of them? Allah. So if you put Allah first, Allah's going to put them first for you. But if you're putting them first before Allah, one day they will turn on you. Right? Because there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that if Allah loves someone, right, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those people that Allah loves. If Allah loves someone, He calls into the heavens and tells the angels, I love so-and-so, so love him. So they all love him. And then the angels, they call onto the earth and they say, Allah loves so-and-so, so love him, and everyone on earth loves him. And if Allah hates someone, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. He calls into the heavens and He says to the angels, I hate so-and-so, so hate him. Or dislike him. And they all dislike him. And then they call onto the people on the earth and they tell that Allah hates so-and-so, so they hate him. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that and give us His love. But to attain Allah's love, we have to truly love Him. Okay? So I'm talking about one aspect of Tawheed. This is just one type of ibadah when it comes to Tawheed. As I mentioned, there's many. Right? And in all of these ibadat, all of these types of worship, Allah has to be above all. Let me just discuss one more. Depending on Allah. Depending on Allah. This is something, it's another aspect I think is very overlooked in the world today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Depending on Allah has two parts. The first part of depending on Allah is the understanding and the belief that it is Allah who is doing everything. It's not you. You're not the result that you have, whether it is money, family, whatever it is, whatever blessing that you have, that result, it's Allah who gave it to you. It's not because I did this. No. It's not because I did that. No. It's not because I'm smart. No. No. None of that. Wallahi, none of that is why you have what you have. Okay, so that's the first component of depending on Allah. The second component of depending on Allah is to do what Allah told you to do. You can't say, I depend on Allah, and I'm just a bum. I don't do anything. Right? Allah maybe, for example, told you to go work. You have to go work. Allah told you, for example, to take care of your family. So you have to take care of your family. You have to do the things that you have to do that. Right? So on and so forth. All these things that we have to do, Allah told us to do it, so therefore you do it. But doing those things, you understand you're only doing it because Allah told you to do it. Not because it is giving result A or result B or result C. It's not. Because result A and result B and all those results that you want or you have, Allah is the one who gives or who gave those. Not your actions, right? This is confusing, so I'm about to pass it to you, Riyaz. So I don't have to keep looking at it. So depending on Allah has those two components. Okay? So therefore, if I have the mentality that I am going to do such and such because this thing will give me such and such, then that's the wrong mentality. If I am doing such and such because this job, this employer is going to give me such and such, it's the wrong mentality.
Is that shirk, kind of? Because you're
Okay,
depending on the employer.
So it becomes shirk when it gets to the point of I think that it is the employer or whoever is giving me that money, that is the one who's giving me that money. Yeah. And therefore, like for example, let's say someone loses their job, right? They go crazy because they don't know how they're going to pay that next bill. They don't know how whatever it is that responsibilities that they have. They start going crazy. Why? Because they thought that that employer who was hiring them was the one that was paying them. That's what they thought. Okay? So because they thought that, that's shirk.
A lot of us have that mentality. I mean,
Unfortunately. And that's a very important mentality that we have to correct, because that tawakkul is ibadah. And it is deserving only to Allah. No one and nothing else. No one and nothing else. You can't assume, even if, let's say, you have a spouse that is a breadwinner. That spouse is my... No. It's Allah. Whatever Allah has given you, it doesn't matter who is in your life, that is what you will get.
it's a very tough concept to. Sometimes, I mean, astaghfirullah, because you're conditioned to believe that, you know, like for example, the employer is just.
You have to constantly improve this exercise, this mental exercise, and you're pushing yourself to remind yourself that it is Allah who's giving you.
Of course.
So sometimes, I mean, sometimes it's words that you say.
Yeah.
Like one thing my dad always says is, Allah is in control. Like he says it all the time. Like when I was a kid, I was like, okay, whatever, why is he saying this all the time? But as I'm learning more about the deen, I understand why he says it all the time. Because it's more so, I mean, for me, when I say it, it's more so a reminder for me. Like Abu Bakr, yeah, you think this thing is going to help you. It's Allah who's in control. So stop thinking, oh, this person is going to help you and that person is... No. Nobody will help you. Allah is helping you. Allah is giving. Allah is taking. So when you have this mentality,
Nothing can stop you, really.
let's when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, I mean, let's understand this. He is Kalimullah. Right? Like Allah spoke to prophets other than Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. But the reason why they call him Kalimullah is because he did it often. Right? I mean, you see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how the situation happened when he was in the cave, right? And Allah spoke to him, right? So Allah said, "Uма tilka biyaminika ya Musa." So what is that in your hand, ya Musa? Your right hand. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam قال هي عصاي أتوكل عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى. Like he didn't want to. He's trying to stretch it out because he was enjoying talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much, right? So he was just
Describing it.
right, giving all the details that he possibly can, right? I mean, it's the thing I'm reminded of that's similar to that is like when you talk to a very young child, like your son that's very young, and like you might not have talking to him for a while, right? So now when you start talking to him, he just starts throwing everything at you, like as much as he possibly can. He's just throw it at you, right? So, subhanallah. So this is Kalimullah, and he's from Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul, like one of the best of the messengers. So Allah tells him to leave Egypt. Okay, and then he's got Harun with him as well, right? Alayhi salatu wasalam. So there's two prophets. One is from Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul, and they're leaving Egypt. Right now, understand again, prophets like when we hear about the Sahaba, how amazing they weren't prophets. Okay, so these are better than the Sahaba. Musa and Harun alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? Yes. So these are like amazing people with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're leaving. Right? And they have with them Bani Israel. And then Fir'aun is following them with his humongous army. They have no weapons. Maybe if they did, nothing significant that can do anything, probably. So, Bani Israel told Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Inna lamudrakun. We're done. They're going to kill us. Right? And it's it. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, this is that dependence on Allah. Right? He said, Kalla. Because in that situation, it seems reasonable for a person to despair and say, there's the enemy, there's the water in front of me, there's nowhere to go, we're dead. And this is what Fir'aun does. This is what he does. He kills children. He slaughters children. Right? This is it. This is Fir'aun. So there's no way he's going to let these people leave. He's not going to say, oh, you know what, I'll let you go this time. No, he's going to slaughter everybody. Right? We know who this guy is. But Musa alayhi salatu wasalam knows who Allah is. So he had that dependence on Allah, and he told them, Kalla. Like, no way. Allah is with me, and he's going to guide me. Right? Notice he didn't say Allah is with me, and he's going to save me. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his sunnah is basically how Allah conducts the world, is that Allah gives you reasons before he gives you miracles. Does that make sense? A reason before a miracle. What do I mean by that? Like, you're not going to see, like if you, let's say you need $1 million and you need it right now, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you this money. That money will not fall out of the sky. Right?
Yes.
Allah is going to give you a reason, something,
We'll see that.
yeah,
Like an excuse.
a means.
A means, yeah.
Yes, Allah will give you a means to give you what you need. Does that make sense? He's going to give you the means to give you what you need. Okay? And you see, when he said Allah is going to guide me, because he knows that Allah is going to give him the means. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But you got to understand though, I mean, this situation is so dire that it needs a miracle. Right? So it needs a miracle, but still in that situation, Allah told him, take your stick and hit the ocean.
Do something.
Right. So Allah gave him the means to hit the ocean, and then a miracle happened. Right? So even though Allah was going to give him a miracle, he still had to explore the means that Allah gave him. So understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gives you something, he gives you the means to that something. And then you have to go get it. Okay? The means could be your job. The means could be your business. Whatever it might be, that means that you have, that is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you. And it's important to understand that. It's important to understand. I mean, even think about your existence. Like, you didn't drop out of the sky. You came from your parents. So your parents were the means that created you. Right? Even Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, who only had one parent, didn't drop out of the sky. He didn't. You get what I'm saying? The only one who was created miraculously was Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Although all of our creations are miraculous.
Even us too.
Yeah, they are miraculous.
Water, I mean,
Right. But the point that I'm making is that, like, something super extraordinary was Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, was the first one. Right? And even the second one was Hawa as well. Even that was
Even more miraculous.
I don't know about more miraculous.
Not more, but you know.
Yeah.
What I was about to say was that Mary, when Maryam alayhi salam was giving birth to Isa alayhi salam, what happened during that pain? She was suffering, and that big pain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even told her to shook the trunk, right?
Yeah.
That
The
way,
tree.
That tree, yeah, that was so hard. No one who can push.
Yeah,
that.
and as you know, for date palm trees,
Yeah,
They're huge.
they don't shake.
yeah,
You can't shake it,
it's a mean, yes,
right? And she was pregnant,
yes.
or like about to have the baby, pregnant, right? So she must have been at her lowest level of strength,
Correct.
right? She must have been the weakest that she could have been.
Mhm.
But even like the choice of what fruit, like the dates, they say scientifically it has something called prostaglandins in it, which helps prevent bleeding afterwards. And this is scientifically proven now.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah. So I mean, there's like even the means, how specific the means are. SubhanAllah. It's
Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, is
mind-boggling.
so the thing is that we have to make sure that we're depending only on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll say one last thing before we move on to the next hadith, because the whole reason that I'm mentioning all of this is because I mentioned that the people who do not commit shirk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive all of their sins and go to Jannah. But I wanted to make it clear that it's not as easy as you think to not commit shirk. Okay? This is a big deal, and it's something that we have to as we're going to talk about this a lot more. We're going to get into this in a lot more detail, inshallah. Okay? But the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not as easy as you think. And I'll give one last hadith so you can understand the magnitude of depending on Allah. There's a hadith narrated in Bukhari and Muslim that the Prophet ﷺ, he told the companions that there are going to be it's a long hadith about a dream that he had. Okay, but nonetheless, at the end of the dream, he said there were 70,000 people of his ummah that will go to Jannah with no questions asked. Basically like a VIP pass.
How do you get that?
So you don't get asked on the day of judgment. It's just straight to Jannah. Right? So then he goes into his house. So they're like, the companions are like, oh, who are these people? So they start talking between them. Who is it? Who is it? Right? Some of them said, oh, maybe they're the early people. They said a lot of stuff. We don't have to talk about exactly what they said. Anyways. So then when they come back out, they said, Ya Rasulullah, who are these 70,000? And there's also a difference of opinion. Are these 70,000 exactly 70,000, or is it just a big number?
I heard they said each one from that 70,000 brings another. I don't know, something.
Not in this. It doesn't say that in this hadith.
Okay.
And this is the 70,000 hadith.
Okay.
I don't know of another one. So,
Okay.
but even if someone brought someone with them,
Yeah.
I would assume those people that are with them are probably asked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is just these 70,000 that there's no questions asked. Because like the day of judgment is a big deal. Right? And as the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that like people would be standing there in their sweat. And some people, they would, like, because of that fear and that,
The sun is near.
and naked. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ, like how everybody's naked? How you? She said, nobody, you're not going to see anybody. Because the magnitude is so big. Can you imagine being in a situation and you don't notice anyone around you? Like, how scared would you be? And that fear and that nervousness that you would have will make you sweat. And that sweat can come up to your ankles, can come up to your knees, can come up to your hips, can come up to your neck.
Drowned.
Right? Depending on how bad the situation is. Okay? So, just describing, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the difficulties of that day. So these people, they're not going to be asked on that day. They don't even go through any of that. Okay? So who are these people? So the Prophet ﷺ said, هم الذين لا يسترقون ولا يكتبون ولا يتطيرون وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. Okay? He said they don't ask for ruqya. For ruqya. What is ruqya? Ruqya is the best way to be healed from anything. Because who's the healer? Allah. So therefore, if you call, let's say a righteous person calls on Allah to heal you. I mean, we have a lot of hadith of the Prophet ﷺ spitting on someone, making dua, and then they get healed. Right? Or him rubbing his hand on something and it gets healed. Right? Happened to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, so on and so forth. It happened to a few people, a few of the companions. Right? So if you ask a righteous person to heal you, it's like the best way to get healed.
But you lose that status though.
Haha. Yes, these people, they don't ask someone to do ruqya on them. Okay? Well, let's come back to it. So now we understand what that is, and we'll come back to it, and I'll tie them all together, inshallah. هم الذين لا يسترقون ولا يكتبون. They also don't do kawi. Kawi is an old way of healing with a hot rod onto a cut or a bruise or something like that.
Cauterization.
Is that what? Okay, yeah. Right? So they don't use that to heal themselves. What's that got to do with now? Because most likely, you don't usually, that doesn't happen now, right?
It happens a lot in surgery.
Oh, it does happen in surgery. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when they open and make sure it's not bleeding, they keep on burning as they go along.
Right. So from what I've heard from the different scholars, they interpret that because it's called cautery. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, cauterization. Yeah.
Cauterization.
Yeah.
So they say now is our time now is that they don't do surgeries unnecessarily. What do I mean by unnecessarily? Like
They know where
not like a life or death surgery.
Mm.
They don't do those surgeries that are not like, life or death, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying? So they're not doing evasive medical procedures, right? Does that make sense?
Can you clear that?
No.
You see?
Say that again.
So he said that they don't do kawi.
Okay.
They don't do cauterization.
Okay.
These people, they don't do that.
The current doctors, whatever you
No,
talk
the people from the 70,000, they don't do.
about. Okay, oh, you went back to the hadith now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, because I was asking about, like, what it is today.
Mhm.
Because back in the day, like, let's say you had a humongous cut,
Yes.
and if you wanted to
Get rid
to
of
stop
it.
the bleeding fast,
Just burn that.
you burn it.
Yeah.
He said they don't do that.
So they just let it be?
Well, they don't do that.
Okay.
You can do whatever
things.
other option there might be, but you don't do that.
Okay. Is there a reason why?
So we're going to come back to that because I want to tie them all together at the end.
So,
And then the third one, he said, وَلَا يَتَطَيَّرُونَ. And they don't have bad omens. They don't have bad omens. What is a bad omen? Like, you know how sometimes they might say, don't open the
Black cat.
umbrella in the house, that's bad luck.
Right.
a black cat walking.
Right. So they also don't have bad omens. Bad omens are haram. Okay? But the first two are halal. It's halal to ask someone for ruqya, and it's halal to do cauterization. No scholar will say that it's haram, as far as I know. Okay? And then the last thing he said, وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. And on Allah only do they depend. And this is the connection between all three of those. So the first one, why is it that they don't ask someone to make dua for them or to read on them? Because they ask Allah themselves. They're not depending on this person to ask Allah. They go to Allah. Because they depend only on Allah and no one else. So even in this situation, the best way to get healed, the best way to receive goodness is for a righteous person to make dua for you. They go to Allah themselves. They don't ask someone else. Right? So some scholars, they say in this thing that these people, they don't even ask people to make dua for them, and they don't ask anyone for anything, to the point that the scholars, they mention that the people who do stuff, who are trying to be a part of these people, if they had a stick, like their cane or something, and they're on top of a camel and it drops, they would not ask someone to give it to them. That someone who's down there who can just grab it. They wouldn't say, hey, can you give it to me? They would go down and pick it up themselves. Right? So they would never ask anyone for anything. They only ask Allah for help.
Can we change ourselves now to be?
It's
Of course.
exactly my question.
It's, of course, it's never too late.
I mean, that was one
You never
thing
know
for
how
us.
long you're going to live.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not easy. This understand, this thing is not easy.
So, I mean, but like, Gawi, I mean, you can't.
Oh, we'll get to that. Just a second. Right?
I'm kind of stuck over there.
Because you do those procedures,
Yeah.
but it's not you doing the
Well,
procedure.
I don't do the procedures, but like, I just order chemo.
But I'm saying even if it is you doing the procedure,
Yeah.
that's not
Haram.
no.
Yeah,
It's
but-
not that that it's not haram.
Yeah.
That's
doing
not
that
you.
me.
That's not a pen.
Right,
It's that it's the person that's getting the procedure,
Right, not the doer.
not the doer of the procedure.
But
Yes.
you know, just like I got 3 C-sections.
Uh huh.
The corporation.
You're done. You lost the 70,000.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Come
I
on,
mean,
man. You'll take it.
No, so you don't. It's
I'll call you on the day of judgment.
the thing is this.
Stop.
No one knows who's getting what
Stop.
and who's not getting what.
That's true.
Okay? But what we try to do is we hope that when we do something and we're going into something, that Allah forgives everything in the past. This is because I mean,
That's why we
if
learn.
if we looked at our sins, I mean, if we were honest with ourselves and we looked at our past, I mean, none of us deserve Jannah, right? So we're just hoping for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Anyway, so the first one, they don't ask anyone for anything. They only ask Allah. Right? To the point, subhanallah. Like, I have mashayikh who actively pursue trying to be these types of people. I mean, I've seen a sheikh not even ask his children to do anything for them. They won't even say, can you get me such and such, or can you give me such and such? Right?
I lost it.
I was like, that's why you have kids.
I said Muhammad to do something for me, man.
Wait till they get older. You don't do anything.
What I'm saying here,
and
this is a high level of a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you're telling Allah, I only need you. Exactly. And I need nothing else. And no one else. Right? This is a high level of worship. Okay? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with it. So then the next one he said, وَلَا يَكْتَوُونَ. They don't do cautery.
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 Okay. Cautery. So they don't do cautery. So the scholars say that any invasive procedure, these people, they don't do it unless there's like a life or death situation. They say that because of this.
Let's say you have a hernia that's hurting you.
Any invasive procedure.
They're gonna kill you.
Yes, they don't do it. I have seen mashayikh, and I kid you not, they will not take medicine because of this. Because they're scared that they will be counted out.
I think this is the
That's-
first time I heard about this hadith, to be honest with you. I've never heard this.
And now, I'm not saying that that's correct to not take medicine.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, like the thing is this. This is your relationship with Allah.
Yeah.
And the question is, how far are you willing to go
Tawakkul.
to prove to Allah that you only need Him and that you truly believe that?
But the medicine are His.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Because so is cauterization,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I know, I understand
He,
that, but
he created those medicine for the weak people like myself.
I'm telling you, I know mashayikh.
oh,
Okay, I'll give you guys a bit of a sneak peek. So Sheikh Muhammad Amin al-Harari, may Allah have mercy on him.
I mean,
He died at 120, 21, 22, something like that. May Allah have mercy on him.
I looked
He
up
didn't
on-
take medicine.
I
he
looked
never
up on
took
him, I started to read about him. He's light skin, very short, skinny. I saw a picture of him too.
He said light skin?
He has a
No,
light
no,
skin.
he's dark skin. No, no.
The one I saw, Amir al-Harari pop up with the light skin, old man, very skinny.
Amir? Or,
Amin.
yeah, I don't know.
what's his name? I mean,
Muhammad al-Amin al-Harari.
Yeah, Muhammad Amin al-Harari. I searched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take medicine.
Subhanallah.
Like sometimes we would take him some medicine. He would say, la, 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 la.
Yeah, Allah.
And he'd be like sick. But he will not take it. No matter what. And it was because he didn't want to be counted out of those people. Right? And I've seen mashayikh.
I'm done with medicine. That's it.
I've seen, like, I'm telling you, like, the dedication that I've seen in some mashayikh, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. SubhanAllah. The dedication to Allah. Right? And like sometimes when I would see it, I'd be like, really? Like how? And wow. Subhanallah. And when I saw Sheikh Muhammad Amin al-Harari, may Allah have mercy on him, like how Allah blessed him in so many ways. I mean, he wasn't rich. Don't get me wrong. He didn't have money, but he didn't care about money anyways. But the other ways Allah blessed him, in the many other ways that Allah blessed him, it was just like, it's just so amazing to me. I just couldn't understand it. Anyways, may Allah have mercy on him.
I mean,
وَلَا يَكْتَمُونَ وَلَا يَتَطَيَّرُونَ. And they don't have bad omens. And this one is the haram one. The other two are halal. This one is haram. So they also don't have bad omens. The bad omens is basically thinking bad about Allah. That's what it is, pretty much. Or you're thinking that someone or something can cause you harm other than Allah. Because if you're thinking, so like to say it's bad luck, thinking that it's someone else who's going to cause you this harm. Right? No, it's Allah who gives and takes. Right? It's not anyone else or anything else.
If you
So-
talk about evil eye, it's because of that evil eye. This thing happened to me because of
So evil eye is real,
yeah.
right? And that's different than a bad omen.
It's like I'm looking at the some kind of a rooster, the color of rooster, or cow or sheep. Oh, this is the color. Oh, this is gonna.
Or one thing they do, like when they say, oh, if they throw a bird up and they're trying to make a decision, they throw a bird up in the sky. If it goes left, you can't do it,
Yes.
right? That's a bad omen, right? So the essence of all of that, he said, وَعَلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, is that they're only depending on Allah. And this is the highest level of dependence. So these people have achieved this level of depending on Allah. And these are people from Ummat Muhammad, by the way, not alayhi salatu wasalam, not any people before. Okay? This is a specific reward for our ummah. Okay? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst them. So when you have perfect worship of Allah, you reach the highest levels. Does that make sense? But the thing that's important to note here, this dependence on Allah, because of my belief, it applied to my actions. So this is a misconception that people think, oh yeah, I just have to believe La ilaha illallah and I can do whatever I want. But that La ilaha illallah has an effect on your actions. Okay? If you truly believe in Allah, then you would fear Him before you do a sin. If you truly believed in Allah, then you would want His bounty and work so hard to do good deeds. Does that make sense? So on and so forth. So that level of truly believing La ilaha illallah that we will go to Jannah for, easier said than done. And that's something that we will continue inshallah to talk about bi'idhnillah as we're going through Riyadh al-Salihin bi'idhnillah, because there's a lot more to discuss in that. So let's get moving on to the next hadith inshallah. Anybody?
Talk about shirk.
That was shirk.
Okay.
So all of that was about shirk.
I was just thinking about major and minor sins that are shirk.
Oh yeah, no, that's the whole point in all of that I was mentioning in regards to love and depending on Allah was just two examples
Yes.
of worship of Allah and how you can have shirk in those.
Yeah.
And how it's very important that we make sure that we're doing everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So any volunteers to read the next hadith?
I'm done at 42.
Okay.
I don't have the I don't have the book. Do you have the book?
I have book with have only 42.
Nobody has it?
I do.
No, I
Okay, that's well done.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ألحقوا الفرائض بأهلها فما أبقت الفرائض فلأولى رجل ذكر رواه البخاري ومسلم.
So the point of this book, Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi, he put 42 ahadith in here. Right? And these 42 ahadith, the purpose of it was to basically give us the basics of Islam. Right? The basics of our life in getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And then he wrote Riyadh al-Salihin that goes into more detail of those same basics. Okay? Rahmatullahi alayhi. Then Ibn Rajab rahmatullahi alayhi came after and he saw these 42 ahadith and he said, you know what, let me add some more. Let me add 8 more to complete these basics. Okay? And he's bringing some other aspects to what Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi brought. So everything that we've learned in all of these 42 ahadith were in essence imaniyat, right? Improving your inner self. Okay? However, there is a connection between the inner and the outer, hence the second hadith where we talked about where Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Islam and Iman. Right? Islam is your outer actions and Iman is your inner actions. Right? But they go together. Right? You can't have Iman without Islam. Can you? No. You need Islam to have Iman. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And as the more you get into Islam, that gives you more Iman. So Iman goes up and down based on your actions. So there's the physical and the spiritual side of it. They're all connected. So Ibn Rajab, may Allah have mercy on him, he's bringing the physical. He's bringing attention to the physical side of it with these additional 8. So the first thing that he talks about is the fara'id. Fara'id is inheritance. And inheritance is the only topic that is so detailed, fiqh-wise, in the Quran. Right? Like salah, for example. We do salah 5 times a day. But there is no detail about Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. There's no detail about how many rak'ahs each have, about all the details that Salah actually have. There's no detail about any of that. But when it comes to inheritance, very detailed. Very detailed. There is very little information that is not in the Quran about inheritance. Almost all of it is in the Quran. Right? Like, just by memorizing the Quran can give you enough knowledge to, in most cases, to actually know what people get in inheritance.
With understanding, of course.
Yes.
When you say memorize,
Yeah, because you also have to memorize to
yeah.
So, why? Why is there so much detail of inheritance in the Quran?
It's a big cause of fitna. To
Right.
get away from that.
It's a big cause of fitna, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making it clear that this is on Allah. Because the thing is as humans, when we make ijtihad, when I, like when I'm giving, let's say I'm giving my kids food, right? This person, he looks like he needs more food than this one. He's bigger, he's 10 years older, he needs more than that one. So I give him a little bit more, and I give him a little bit less, right? I mean, whatever decisions I make in my justice that I'm giving, there's always going to be, I don't know about that.
Suspect.
Right. There's always going to be things that are, And the problem with inheritance, when a parent dies or a sibling dies or someone dies, and especially if that person left a lot of money, right, behind. And when that person leaves a lot of money behind, if it's left up to a person to say this person gets this and that person gets that, then there can be hard feelings for the rest of their lives. I know families personally.
Every family.
That have problems for 50 years because of inheritance. 50 years. They have problems between siblings. They won't talk to each other because of how the inheritance happened. Right? Why? Because they didn't do it the way Allah told them to. So now, imagine the inheritance situation comes, and then you say, Allah said this, Allah said that. Who's going to talk now?
No one.
Who's going to say, oh no, I got too little? No, Allah said this is what you get. You have a problem with Allah? Do you get what I'm saying? It's clear in the Quran. Right? Another issue in inheritance, like people bring this up all the time, like they have countries in the world, Muslim countries in the world, may Allah guide them. They say, oh, this is backwards where the where the male gets the amount of two females. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيْنِ. Okay? That the male gets
Twice.
what two females get. Right? So they say, oh no, this is backwards. We need to correct this. The problem with that is that now they are causing harm to people. So let's look at this and understand what can be some wisdoms or benefits where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the male gets as much as two females. The first thing that I want to point out in that ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's comparing the male to the female. When you compare something to something, the thing that is being compared to is usually better. Does that make sense? Like, for example, if I compare chicken to steak. I'm a steak guy.
Halal or
I am a
is
steak
it or
guy.
not? Is it
Allah
from
yahdik.
Morton's or is it from?
It's the biha, okay? All right, we
Are you
good.
happy?
All right, so I'm a steak guy. Okay, so I'm gonna look at it from my perspective. So if I want to compare something, I'm gonna compare the chicken to the steak,
We should go.
not the other way around. Does that make sense? Because one is better than the other. So Allah in this ayah is comparing the men to women, not the other way around. As if the women are better. Why is that?
I never thought about it.
Right? The reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that is because, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in another ayah in Surah An-Nisa, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Don't hope for what the things that Allah has blessed some of you over others. You know how, like, you'll have someone who's blind. That blind person should not say, oh man, I envy all the people who can see. He should be satisfied with what Allah gave him. Right? The short person shouldn't envy all the tall people. The tall person shouldn't envy all the short people. The rich person shouldn't envy all the poor people. The poor people shouldn't envy all the rich people. And the list goes on, right? But it's also the men shouldn't envy the women, and the women shouldn't envy the men. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using it here in this context in regards to men and women. Don't hope for what Allah has blessed some of you over others. لِلْرِجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَ. Men have a share of what Allah has given them, and women have a share of what Allah has given them. Right? They're different. They're not the same. Right? وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Right? Is that the ayah? Yeah, وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And ask Allah for his addition. Fadl is so like is basically extra. Like, let's say you get a share of food and then everybody's getting the same share of food. Fadl is that if you got more than what everybody else got. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So ask Allah for his fadl, for his extra that to give you. Does that make sense? So what Allah is saying there is that everyone has their niche or goodness, right? Between men and women. Okay? So now in this situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in regards to inheritance, Allah is preferring the women over men. Right? But the thing is people look at this the wrong way. The way people look at this is, hey, a woman should get exactly what a man gets. So this is their basis. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But nobody says men should be pregnant just like women should. Nobody says that. Nobody says, what do you call it? Women should do the hard labor things that men do. Nobody says that, right? When people want equality is when it's beneficial, not when it's harmful. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So now let's look at this issue in regards to inheritance. When it comes to the obligation of providing, this falls on who?
The men.
The men. The women have zero obligation in providing. Let's say a woman is a widow. Her brothers have to provide for her. They are obligated to provide for her. Her parents, if they're still alive, are obligated to provide for her. Yes. Sons, if they're alive, they are obligated to provide for her. Uncles, if they're still alive, they are obligated to provide for her. Nephews, if they're still alive, they are obligated to provide for her. So she's got so many men in so many different directions who are obligated. And I'm saying this very clearly because this obligation, it falls on the men. And I say obligated because if a man is not doing it, he is sinning. He is sinning. This is an obligation. I know of a brother, subhanAllah, recently, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on his brother-in-law, died. So he's like, he's trying to take care of it. And I made sure, I pulled the brother aside. I'm like, look, this is your obligation to take care of your sister. It's not just, oh, I'm doing her a good thing. No. This is her right over you. Just like it's your obligation to take care of your wife, just like it's your obligation to take care of your kids, it's also your obligation to take care of your sisters, to take care of any female direct relatives. Auntie as well, yes.
How about like cousins who are with
No,
you?
not cousins. Because you're not a mahram for them. Anyone that you are a mahram for, right? It is your obligation. If you do take care of your cousins, I mean, it's a good thing. I'm not saying, I'm talking about the obligation though.
There's no doubt.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to. Okay? So this obligation falls on the man. So if Allah gives this obligation, He also has to help him in this obligation. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Also, but the women, what obligation do women have financially? Zero. They don't have any obligation financially. Right? So, if you think about it, in regards to obligation, women should get nothing. Because they don't have to pay for anything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them something. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And the fact that He gave them half of what a man has, right, is something that is amazing. Where the man is the one that has to provide. Where, I mean, if you think about it, maybe logically, obviously outside of the Quran, outside of this, this perfection that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, you would say, okay, since there's zero obligation on the woman, and there is so much obligation on the man, then therefore the man should get maybe 10-1. Right? But no. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving the women something because they are doing something. Because the women are contributing to society. Right? They are doing something that is amazing in so many different amazing ways. So the men's obligation is important. It's amazing, so therefore they need that money. But the women, they also do something that is very important as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored them and gave them a share that is fair based on their participation. And Allah knows best exactly, do you get what I'm saying, all the wisdom behind it. But nonetheless, some scholars explain that to mean that based on like you can actually calculate it, and they go through the calculation of how much you would have to actually do, and then basically because of your obligations, because of a man's obligations, he's getting, so let's say there's 3 shares. Okay, so it's a brother and a sister. The brother's getting 2 shares, and the sister's getting 1 share. Okay? So therefore, the brother uses 1 share to take care of his obligations.
I mean,
Let's assume she's married and she has no obligations. Right? She has her husband who's taking care of her obligations. Okay? So that money she's getting, she's pocketing.
So it's kind of equal then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the man, he's taking one share and using it on his obligations. And then that other share, he's pocketing. And then she pocketed that share as well, so therefore it's equal. Does that make sense? So anyways, but the point is, I mean, these are all examples and these are all ijtihadat from the scholars that they talk about this. But the point is, Allah knows best. Allah knows His creation. So when He created us and He told us this is how we should do it, there's infinite wisdom in that. Why question it and why change it? Right? So the point that the Ibn Rajab rahmatullahi alayhi wanted to bring up here was this issue of inheritance. Right? So he brought this hadith. He said, "Alhiqul fara'id bi ahliha." Give the fara'id. A faridah is basically, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in these ayat, He said, "Faridatan min Allah." Faridah is basically the obligation of received inheritance. Like you automatically get this share. For example, right? لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. That, let's say there's a brother and a sister, and there's 3 shares because of the brother and the sister, right? Inheriting. From who, it doesn't matter, but nonetheless they're inheriting. Okay? The brother gets 2 shares and the sister gets 1 share. Does that make sense? So they're equally split. So each of those shares are automatic shares that they get, and there are faridah. It is an obligated share that this person gets this and that person gets that. Does that make sense? So let's say it's $30,000. The brother gets 20, sister gets 10. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, give the faridah to the people that are the people of deserving of it. I wouldn't say deserving of it. He said, "Alhiqul fara'ida bi ahliha," meaning the people of it. The people of it. And I don't think I can say in English other than deserving of it. But he's not saying specifically deserving of it. But
rightful inheritors.
Rightful inheritor. There you go. Give it to the rightful inheritors. Right? فَمَا أَبْقَتِ الْفَرَائِض فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ. And then whatever is left from the fara'id, is that right? فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ. Whatever is left from the fara'id, right? And then it goes to the closest male. The closest male. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving the male. Now this is outside of these 2, the brother and the sister. Okay? So if there's something left from that.
How is something left?
Yeah, it's if the situation gets a little complicated, there can be something left. It's not in this scenario.
If you cannot divide something in 3 or something.
No, it's not that it can't be divided. What happens is that, like, you'll have, let's say there's 7 people that are inheriting, right? It could be a wife, children, an uncle, so on and so forth. But not really an uncle because the children stop the uncle, but a brother, for example, right? So you have all of these different shares that people are getting, and then this person is designated getting this, and this person is getting this, so everybody's getting something. But based on all of those percentages, there can be something left. Does that make sense? Then that should go to the nearest male inheritor.
So,
And-
brother, one question: when people have like a husband, wife, and their kids, so they have still brother and the inheritance go to brother and sisters also, or just to the wife or husband who died away, and the rest to the kids?
So
not
what?
to brother and sister of the person, right?
Well, what I would suggest, the thing is that things can get complicated pretty quickly. What I would suggest is everyone actually look at their inheritance, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said no one should travel without a will. Right? It should be clear what you have and who's getting what. Right? like for me personally, I have my brother as the head of my estate if I were to die. Right? So he and my brother knows inheritance way better than I do, and I trust that he'll give everybody what they should get. So when I die, he's going to receive all the money and he's going to distribute it to everybody who should be getting. Right? So the thing is that you have to make sure that this is clear when you die, because we're all going to die. It could happen today. It could happen 100 years from now, right? But what you don't want is for your family to fight over you when you die, especially if you're leaving some money behind. You don't want that. So, and then you might say, "Oh yeah, they're not gonna fight." You don't know. You really don't know. So it's best to make it clear and talk to people. There's a website, mywasiya.com, that I think is very helpful. WASIYYAH, I think. Mywasiya.com. That's very helpful.
Can you spell it, brother? Can you spell it one more time? WA?
So my MYWA SIYYAH, I believe. And the person who leads this website is a friend of mine, Joe Bradford, and he's very good with inheritance as well. So the point of this hadith is just to point us to the issue of inheritance and to show that it is all made clear, right? So even in the situation that, because all the fara'id are in the Quran, all of the fara'id are in the Quran. So then the Prophet ﷺ gives us, even in the situation where there's something left over, the Prophet ﷺ already told us what to do with it. Does that make sense? So again, this is connecting the imaniyat to the actions, to our physical behavior. And this is important to our physical behavior, because we talked about la tahasadu wa la tanajasu wa la tabaghadu, right? All of those where you can't hate your Muslim brother, you can't do this, right? Well, when you mess up inheritance, it causes animosity, right? So you want to make sure that we're not causing any animosity between siblings, between family, between so on and so forth. We have to take all of that away, right? There has to be love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this clear so that there is no chance for these types of issues. So we have to do our job to make our inheritance clear so that when we die there is no problems. We want our kids making dua for us, not saying, "Oh, my dad did this and my mom did this." No, you want them making dua for you, saying, "Alhamdulillah, Allah, they left me all of this and all of that. May Allah give them Jannah." Right? That's what we want. And not just our kids, I mean other family, like, because other family members can inherit as well, including parents, uncles, aunts, siblings, so on and so forth. And as you did mention, sister, like, you know, there are people that are blocking others from inheritance. Like children do block a lot of other people. But that's something that I would strongly suggest that you clear up and make sure it's understood, and all of that is in your will, especially in a non-Muslim country. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to do this Islamically." They don't know what that means, right? So it just has to be.
It also becomes difficult, like if you don't have liquid assets and you have.
But still, when it's clear,
Yeah.
what percentages are what,
Right.
then that could be worked out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have a framework.
Yes.
Where you can go. Yeah.
All of that could be worked out because usually what happens is that there's someone who's in charge of the estate, and then that person is trustworthy and is basically distributing it based on the Quran and Sunnah. And this is how almost all the companions did it like that. Any questions? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
جزاك الله خير.
وإياكم.